See, speaking with again different stakeholders, if you say the easiest way to push the sustainability is to have a regulation, which sometimes I personally argue with different stakeholders and say, if there is a law to force you, you're going to do it. But if there is no law, you're not going to do it. Many times the answer is yes. And I was like,
the UAE has committed billions to clean energy on the path to net zero by 2050. And Abdullatif Albitawi, CEO of Emirates Green Building Council, is at the forefront. With a Masters of Science in Energy Studies and 20 plus years in pharmaceuticals, chemicals and manufacturing, he's championing advanced QHSE and sustainability solutions to reshape the Middle East's built environment.
For me, I don't like the idea of that. I think of something and say, okay, what about sustainability? No, it's organic if you say, I want to produce something. When I design this space, how it will help those people in that building, how it will have a positive influence, impact on the community, on the environment, on the people, on the economy, on everything.
Welcome, Abdullatif. Very pleased to have you as my guest today, talking about the Emirates Green Building Council, which was founded here in 2006. You joined in 2022. What is sort of the purpose of the Emirates Green Building Council?
Firstly, thank you very much for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be with you here also. So the council, when it was established in 2006, the vision was to promote and advocate for sustainability in the built environment in the UAE and make the UAE a leading country, regionally, but also globally in applying, let's say, best practices in the built environment. At the time, maybe the sustainability term wasn't used yet much. It was more of the green, green buildings, green economy, and so on. In 2006, the founders who came together and shared this vision, the construction industry was booming at that time, and they all shared this if you say concern that we want to make sure that all these buildings coming being built in the country to really meet certain standards and make sure they are environmentally compliant, if you say, and let's use the word now, more sustainable. And that's why they thought, okay, let's come together and let's do something where we help, the industry, but also the country in achieving these goals. And the council was established, and since then until now, it's really growing, from level to a higher level, progressing from success to success, all because of the dedication, the passion of the founders, but the team and also the members of the council who come from different sectors, from different also areas in the United Arab Emirates.
Yeah. And how many members do you have at the moment?
We have around 150 corporate members and 65 individual members or professional members so far.
And it is from all kinds of sectors and different...
Yes, so developers, consultants, contractors, manufacturers, suppliers, financial institutions, healthcare, facility management, technology companies, catering, freight forwarding, you name it. I think we have from every sector at least a few representatives.
Yeah.
Of course, most of the, if you say the members come from the consultants, the manufacturing and the developers part, which makes sense. But we have also other representatives.
Yeah. And when you look at your own sort of like past, what is it then, almost 3 years, what sort of changes have you seen around the topic sustainability in the UAE?
So since I joined the council in 2022, early 2022, firstly, I saw the interest is growing amongst different stakeholders. Okay, people are more serious now about sustainability in the built environment. I'm talking about built environment more specifically.
Yeah.
So people are more interested now. And then the topics are really varying. So the good thing, on one hand, the good thing is that there is no one topic that let's say the industry is focusing on. which is good because that means, we're looking after kind of everything or most of the things that may impact sustainability in the built environment. It's challenging because that means you have to do so many things at the same time. But for me, that's a positive indicator that sustainability is being taken more seriously. So we look at, energy management and efficiency. This is like an old new topic, right? But then water efficiency, indoor health. This is something I would say, coming new and growing more. So indoor health and indoor air quality, indoor environment quality in general.
Yeah.
But then, of course, materials supply, embedded carbon in materials, biodiversity in the built environment, and then, of course, the technology use in the built environment, whether, through the design phase, the construction phase, and then, of course, the operation and maintenance phase of the buildings.
Yeah. And it obviously, Emirates Green Building Council is working closely with the World Green Building Council. So certain standards like LEED, and I guess LEED and WELL have joined hands a little bit in the past as well. Are those things really driving also the way the council is looking at sustainability? Or
so certainly those, we call them the building rating systems or building certification systems, helps, of course. First of all, to achieve those certificates, you have to fulfill the requirements, which push the bar above the, if you say, the standards or the normal state. But also this is kind of encouraging the industry. There's kind of a competition, right?
Yeah.
And in here in this part of the world, we like this. We like to be like the first, the most, the highest, the tallest. So I think that's in a positive way where different, let's say, stakeholders, especially of course the building owners who go mainly about these certificates. It's like there is a kind of a competition. Yes, I want to be, my building to be LEED or other certification systems. LEED is probably more dominant here.
Yeah.
There are other things like BREEAM, etc., but they are less really. If you say there's less number of buildings here, and just to bring maybe to your attention is that despite the small size of the country when it comes to the area, but UAE is in the top 15 or 10 countries worldwide with the number of buildings LEED certified.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. And is that driven by companies themselves? As you say, they like to be the best, the first, or the biggest, but or is it also in conjunction with drive that is basically more from a policy perspective with certain drives that the UAE has from a federal level?
I think it's more than just one reason. So firstly, yes, putting your, as a company or as a building owner, putting yourself, aside by saying, my building is certified. So that's an indication that my building performs differently, right? But also it's driven by the client's demand. So clients are, whether they are companies or corporates or even individuals, are becoming more cautious. And they are now requesting more that, yes, the building that we want to have our office, our home is greener, is more sustainable. So this is pushing the building, owners to make sure that their building will meet their clients' needs, right? But of course now with the with more, if you say, strategic goals set by the government, strategic targets, whether it's on the level of the like the net zero emissions by 2050, but also if you go, more specific about, the number of buildings to be, green, or the number of the or the the footprint of the building. So that's also pushing companies to become more cautious. But the general interest also is growing. So now you see more consultants, providing, let's say, more sustainable designs or solutions. Developers are now more keen to have their assets again more sustainable or greener. Contractors, suppliers, everyone is now really kind of keen to make it better. And that's where, this is driving, this high number of let's say, rated buildings or certified buildings. Keep in mind also that in some of the Emirates, they have their own rating systems. So in Abu Dhabi, you have Istidama. And Istidama is, on its first level, the peril is mandatory for certain, areas of buildings, but that's mandatory. So this is again pushing, developers that you have to at least, meet the minimum requirement, but then you're welcome to go above. And we see that many are going above of that. And then in Dubai, you have Sa'fat. In Ras Al Khaimah, they have Burjil. But those are like very local or very Emirate specific, let's say, rating systems.
And is there some sort of uniformity between those rating systems, or is it in that way each Emirate does?
We can't say there is uniformity. There are maybe, yes, similar criteria amongst all these different rating systems, whether the local one or even the international ones. But there are still differences between them. And I may say that this difference is healthy, because that means, they are really, they have developed this rating system to, let's say, meet the context, meet the conditions, meet, the requirements of each emirate, which may differ from emirate to emirate. But that's kind of also challenging for developers, consultants, contractors, because now they have to meet
different criteria
in different emirates, although they may have, properties here and there.
Yeah. And these standards are focused on, I guess, new developments, new build, or is that also trickling through to retrofitting as well?
Well, yeah, mainly for the new developments, although there is, for example, in Lead, they have the operation and maintenance one, which is for existing buildings, but for operation and maintenance. Now, for retrofitting, it's maybe different. So there is a push from the government towards, retrofitting existing buildings. Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Ras Al Khaimah, and probably other Emirates have set targets for that. And each one is doing different, programs, different initiatives to encourage and, push towards that. And in most of these Emirates, what they have started to do is really make it mandatory for the government-owned buildings to retrofit first. So, like, set an example, but also create the market.
Yeah.
But then you still have, the private-owned buildings. There's no law currently to mandate that. But this is something, we're looking forward and see how this can be changed and how we can more encourage, the private sector to go for retrofitting.
What is the biggest challenge, you think, when you look at retrofitting as a topic, both, by the way, for government buildings or private buildings?
We did a study. It's kind of now old. It's 2000, probably 18 or so, where we wanted to find out, what are the key challenges or barriers for retrofitting.
Yeah.
One of the top one was the cost, the initial cost needed. Although this may vary from case to case, and then depending on what retrofitting are you doing. But this is something that was brought up by many developers, that the initial cost is high.
Yeah.
It may become a barrier for the companies to make a decision on retrofitting their buildings. And then regulations, because there's no regulations to mandate or to even encourage. So that's why, there is kind of hesitance into that. But there are other reasons that may vary from sector to sector. Some of it related to the operation of the building. So if you talk about, for example, healthcare or hospitality, it becomes more difficult, because then you have to take into consideration, the type of operation, who you're going to impact by doing your retrofit. Although that doesn't mean you cannot do it. You can do it, but it requires maybe more planning, more preparations for that. And then maybe some people find this difficult to do, and again, make them hesitant to invest in retrofitting. But the good news is that we have so many success stories who did retrofitting to their buildings, and they have shown that because of that retrofitting, they have reduced their OPEX or operational, expenses.
Yeah.
By high percentage, and that translates into hundreds of thousands and sometimes millions of dirhams per year.
Yeah.
A reduction in your electricity bills, water bills, improving your asset value, and then of course the most important thing is that your reputation, and then your clients. Clients will be more encouraged to go and rent or buy from those buildings.
Yeah, but sometimes I think it is also the challenge that you have, that you're dealing with different stakeholders when you're talking about retrofitting, because you have the owner. Or the asset owner, at least. You do sometimes, certainly in hospitality, deal with an operator.
Yeah.
So who is ultimately responsible for the bill, right?
Yes.
Because retrofitting is more than just, I think, the fixtures in the building. It is, like you say, the well-being by large.
Yes, I mean, you've touched upon hospitality, and yes, especially for that sector, there's this, if you say, discussion, who's responsible for what, but then most of the time it's the decision of the property owner or the asset owner, not the operator. And what sometimes I see is that the operators trying to kind of increase the awareness of the asset owner or the property owner to encourage them really to invest in retrofitting. I believe the way you market the retrofitting project is very important. If you introduce it in a way that it's only about spending and cost and operation interruption, etc., certainly it will be difficult to buy in it. But if you introduce it, or if you market it in a way that this is kind of a value proposition, it's an investment opportunity, and then you show the benefits, the return on investment, the savings, etc., I think it will be different. The effect will be different.
Yeah, and like you say, it extends into reputation in the market. There is a lot of brand value that can be developed with it as well.
There are clients who now will not rent or buy assets that are not efficient in terms of energy, water resources, but also in terms of indoor air quality, sustainability in general. They won't go for that, and I think the number of those clients is increasing. So that makes a pressure on the asset owners and the developers. They have to meet the client's requirements.
And do you think that it is still also needed from a government perspective to incentivize those drives, or and if so, how?
See, speaking with again different stakeholders, I mean, if you say the easiest way to push the sustainability is to have a regulation.
Yeah.
Okay? Which sometimes I personally argue with different stakeholders and say, so if there is a law to force you, you're going to do it. But if there is no law, you're not going to do it. And many times the answer is yes. And I was like, how? I mean, I understand the human nature, we can't like randomness or, but still, if I believe that this is important, but I say, you know what, until there is a law, I'm not going to do it. And then you say, well, if I do now, there's a high investment. But then if there is a law, it's still a high investment.
Yeah.
But because it's a law, you have to do it. So why don't you take the initiative? Which we see many key players took the initiative, and they are not waiting for laws to be in place. And they decided that we want to go for sustainability in built environment. Now, for the incentive part, this is something where, again, different stakeholders, especially developers, maybe and other players say, yeah, if there are incentives, then this will help also drive. But then, what type of incentives do you expect? Because there are different ways of incentivizing, things. It could be the very simple incentive where you get some kind of financial aids or funds. Other would be like reduce your taxation or your custom duties, etc. I mean, there are many mechanisms for incentives, and at least here in the UAE, we don't see yet any kind of incentives, or at least the very direct incentives, if you say, like you see it maybe in other parts of the world.
Yeah, but even in other parts of the world, I think it is still quite disjointed how it's being executed. I think ultimately it has to be an intrinsic sort of like drive from within. And when you look in the market, obviously one of the biggest examples was Master City and how it was developed, and probably a blueprint for many other developments after. Is that the only sort of marquee example in the UAE, or do you see others?
Certainly, Masdar was the first. And they can set the tone for everyone, and they started years ago, right? But no, there are other also success stories that are in the UAE and different Emirates, by the way, not just Abu Dhabi but Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, and other Emirates, Ras Al Khaimah also. Maybe the in a different ways or in different manners, but we see a number of developments, whether it's a community-based development or even just a one building or so, that are really going, if you say, beyond the normal when it comes to building specifications and then what they have introduced in their buildings. I don't know. You have companies like Al Dar, Majid Al Futtaim. They've been doing this long time ago, right? Explicity now is a new development that are very keen on about having if you say high standards in their new buildings. And then companies like Emirates is coming on, ICD Brookfield also. I don't want to name things because I don't want to sound that I'm either listing only those companies or promoting them, but because we see from the different projects, true examples and real examples. Also in the hospitality sector, because you touched upon this, we see new hotels being built again, using higher standards in the building itself, and considering those different, let's say, solutions that will help this hotel become more sustainable with less carbon footprint and emissions.
And then of course that links nicely to initiatives like Green Key.
Exactly. Although Green Key is not about the building itself, it's more about the whole operation. But yes, of course, it encourages that, because in Green Key, we check how is your energy performance, your resources in general, water, how you do your waste management. So certainly, if your hotel, let me say, is following these different kind of requirements, then yes, you qualify to Green Key or other eco-labels also for the hospitality sector.
Which in their case obviously is a very big value to the brand that you're building, because more and more guests are actually making selection on wherever they want to stay based on these type of certifications.
Exactly.
But it touches upon, I guess, also another important component, which is like how you operate the building once it's there, whether it's new or retrofitted. Do you see any sort of like specific trends in how facilities management, for example, in the region is catching on?
I don't know if it's a trend, to be honest, but I think using of technology is catching up. There is a lot of talking about digitalization and then artificial intelligence. Although for me, artificial intelligence is, we need to talk carefully about it, right? I think we're using the AI in general, but I see a lot of technology being introduced in building management systems. Years ago there was, the BMS or the building management system. Now they talk about more advanced systems that manage the operation of the building. I have seen in some places where they control the operation of the building, whether it's the HVAC system or even the water system, the lighting system, even the security, right? All digitally, using those very advanced, if you say, digital, platforms or digital, solutions, taking into considerations, temperatures, indoor, outdoor, humidity, occupancy, rates, daytime, nighttime. If it's a commercial building, then usually the operation is in the first half of the day. So those systems are automatically doing these controls,
Yeah.
without the need really of having someone sitting and monitoring and counting who's there and who's not there and who is using the AC here or not. It's all done through these smart systems or smart technology. I think maybe I will use the word smart technologies in maintaining and operating those buildings.
Yeah. And that is a trend, I think, for sure. It's also quite difficult, I think, to make the choices at the moment. What technology are you going to use and implement? And sometimes also, how do you then operate it? Because you can have a very sophisticated environment, but if you still don't know how to use it to your advantage, then that's an issue. Now, how do you think the role of technology is undisputed. It makes life a lot easier. It helps you indeed manage the environment. But still, after that, there is a certain action required to do something, a certain task. Do you feel that from an operational management perspective, companies are catching on well enough in that way?
I think it depends. In buildings where, for example, you have a facility management company doing that, I think yes, they're keen and very, if you say, critical about responding to those, needs or requirements, whether it's for a maintenance or a replacement, because part of their contractual agreement with the building owner or the asset management is on performance. So they have to perform well to make their business running. Where maybe this is less in buildings that are owned and operated and maintained by the same owner. But we see the facility management companies in general, yes, do really taking serious actions to make sure that the building is maintained and operated as efficient as possible.
There is ultimately, I guess, also an internal incentive to make that work well, because if you have to rework a lot, that's an additional cost.
Of course.
All of these things ultimately add up to a significant cost structure. When you look at the development in the UAE, and now the Emirates Green Building Council is obviously already here since quite some time and probably a front runner, I guess, certainly in the Middle East. How do you facilitate sort of best practices across different sectors or types of building? Is that a function that?
Yes, of course. This is one of the key, if you say, things the council does is to bring all these relevant stakeholders together, okay, and then share the experience, the knowledge, the solutions available. This is one thing. But understanding that the built environment or the sector is wide, you have the design phase, you have the construction phase, you have even before that the manufacturing of the materials, of the construction materials, and then you have the maintenance operation and so on. So what we want to do in the council is that we want to make sure that all these phases or all these steps are being considered. Sustainability is being considered in that. And what we do is we work with our members, of course, and then with the different government entities in the UAE, and with also other, let's say, professional bodies and NGOs who have, let's say, relevance, interest into the built environment, to learn about what are the new, let's say, solutions, technologies, what's going on, what are the trends, but also to understand what are the real requirements and needs, from a local context. And then make sure that what is being provided or offered by different stakeholders will really meet what is really needed here and what will help achieve those different, let's say, goals, objectives, whether by the government itself or even by the corporates themselves. And then to do this, we work on, if you say, different programs with those different stakeholders. It could be, in doing some market studies or market research, and assess, what's this current status, and assess what are the gaps It could be in developing, frameworks, roadmaps that will help others, to again, either to start their journey or at least to help them in their journey that they have started.
Yeah.
It's an important thing is influencing, okay? Influencing, again, the different stakeholders. So the government, so by, who put policies, regulations, codes.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the other companies, whether they are developers, consultants, design houses, engineering, management, contractors, and so on, manufacturers, we want to influence the way they do work, the way they, introduce laws, regulations, the way even they design the buildings. We want them to move now from, if you say design as normal, to design differently.
Yeah.
And very recently, last COP in UAE, COP 23, they announced the launch of the building breakthrough. Okay, so the building breakthrough says that countries who sign to this, they have to commit to a target of that all new buildings designed should be resilient and energy efficient by 2030.
Okay.
And then, of course, there are so many other different initiatives and consents that countries or groups agreed together. Some of them are more focused on certain areas like HVAC or cooling. Some of them are general about buildings. So this is where the council again plays key role in influencing those different stakeholders and making them learn about what's happening here and there. What are those new initiatives?
Yeah.
For us, it's very important to have those people connected. And to bring, if you say the government and the public sector, the government and the private sector sitting together, listening from each other, learning, and feeding into each other. The private sector needs to understand what's happening, so they prepare themselves, and vice versa. The government, and this is something we have to highlight and appreciate here, is that the government here is keen to listen from the private sector, right? And understand, what's happening, what's going on. So that also helps them shape, let's say the different regulations, the different frameworks.
Well, there is also a pretty big closeness between the government and the private sector that is interlinked in many of the developments.
Exactly.
As such.
Yeah, of course.
So in that way, there is, I guess, also even an incentive to be close in that. Do you feel that the UAE actually is in a position now to export some of these approaches to sustainability in the region and beyond? And when I'm saying export, it is more the knowledge, it is the roadmaps, because after all, we're living here in a harsh environment.
Correct.
It's not easy to manage. Assets are battered every day.
Yes, what we see and what we hear also from many let's say parties is yes, UAE is being looked at as a model in the region, as the pioneer. So like UAE starts something and then others will try and learn or get inspired, if you say, by what the UAE started. And we see this in many things. I think UAE was one of the pioneers in introducing green building codes years ago. It's the first country to have a net zero target by 2050. You see the different, whether on the federal level or on the Emirates level, again, different initiatives and programs that promote sustainability in general and sustainability in the built environment. And yes, the impression we have is that everyone is like watching what the UAE is doing.
Yeah.
And then they've done it there, so let's let's learn or let's do something maybe. Of course, not going to be exactly the same. You have different countries with different needs, different requirements, but at least to know to try and do similar things, or at least to say, well, we like this what happened in the UAE, so why not do something similar in our country and in other places? And not just in the region. Again, this is something I really feel proud when being part of the council, when I sit with with my peers from other countries, and I see this kind of, if you say, appreciation and respect and the way they speak with us, and that UAE is kind of is playing an important role regionally, but also globally.
Yeah, and some of them may not even envy you because of the circumstances in which we operate and at a breakneck speed. Because,
yes.
I mean, the growth is tremendous in terms of inventory also. And at the same time, like you're saying, I mean, retrofitting is a challenge still. How do you move from chemical engineering into sustainability? I mean, that is a...
Okay, that's interesting. So in chemical engineering, I mean, during our study, one of, if you say, the key things we learn is how to produce more efficiently, right? So how to reduce the waste in making this product, whatever is that product, right? And how you produce it using less resources in general, whether it's energy resources or even the raw materials themselves. So I would say kind of that this is, embedded in what we studied. But it's not only because of that. When I was doing my degree, there was one particular course which is about environmental pollution or protection. And I liked that course very much. And I think this kind of like planted the seed of me being more environmental cautious and more interested in that topic. But then when I pursued my master's degree, that was an eye-opener for me, saying, it's not just about production, it's more about, again, efficiencies, reducing your environmental impact. And I think since then this became a very interesting topic to me. Of course, I started as a chemical engineer in pharmaceuticals, chemical manufacturing, and other types of manufacturing. And that was always, something, we kind of practice. It wasn't very well, if you say, structured in the name of sustainability, but it was more, as I said, of efficiency, reduction of waste, reduction of, of hazardous materials, etc. But when I did my master's in energy, that really opened the door for me to more into the world of sustainability and energy management. And since then, I became very, very, if you say, active and keen about this. Yes, my focus before was on not on the building sector, but more on, as I said, the industrial, the manufacturing, and the energy part. But then, because we live in buildings, the manufacturing facility is a building. The factory is a building. The warehouse is a building. Everything is a building. So that kind of also made me, before joining the council, that building is an important part. And I started doing some kind of, of those training courses about energy auditing and energy management, which cover the building, if you say, sector or part. So then when I saw the opportunity with the council, I think for me it was like, it ticks a lot of boxes. So yes, I can do a lot around focusing on sustainability. The built environment, again, place where we live, we work, we do everything. It's an NGO. So I have this flexibility to do things, but also I have the opportunity to connect with all stakeholders. Right? So for me, it was like, yes, this is something I should go for it. And I'm grateful and thankful to God and then to the board who really made the decision. Okay, they said, yes, we want you to be with us. And I'm really, very, very happy and delighted to be part of this organization.
And it's also an exciting time to be part of it because the pressure is on in terms of the commitments given, like we said already, here in the UAE. So, I mean, the lights are focused on.
Yes, this is something very interesting and exciting for me, and I think my team also, is that because we see this growing interest, that put more pressure on us as a council, because we want to make sure that all will follow and all we know will be more serious about sustainability. But it also gives this feeling of satisfaction that I'm doing something not for one company, I'm doing something for the whole country. And I think this is really something very, very, I don't know how to describe it in words, but it's something very, very, satisfactory that, I'm doing something that helps the whole community, the whole country, not just one company or just one group of
you can have an impact on a broader scale. As such.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you to have a green mind? Or if you look at your team, or anybody, by the way, in that way, what does it mean to have a green mind?
A green mind is a mind that thinks, that takes into consideration, the environment, the nature, the people also, in any action you take. Okay, for me, it becomes a default way of thinking, a default way of judging things, a default way of assessing things. For me, I don't like the idea of that. I think of something and say, okay, what about sustainability? No, it's organic. If you say, I want to, to produce something, I will automatically think, okay, what are the resources needed? How can I produce it, for example, with less resources, with high efficient, equipment? And then, how safe is this product? How can it be used? And then how it can be disposed or reused, etc. If you talk about a building, when you design a building, it's not just about designing, a space where people will live or work. But then again, when I design this space, how it will help those people, whether it's a house, whether it's a school, whether it's a hospital, but how it will help those people in that building, how it will have a positive influence, impact on the community, on the environment, on the people, on the economy, on everything. For me, this is a green mindset, is something you think and take into account all these different factors, like automatically or without a second thought. This is how you behave, or this is how you think.
And are we on the right track?
I'm afraid not yet. I see many people who are, by the way, maybe even better than maybe they have better definition than what I gave you now. But I still see many others who are still not yet. It's just about, for me, I just like to use this, I don't know, gadget, or for me, it's just about, wearing whatever I like to wear, or, using whichever type of cars to go from place to place, or, for me, it's just about, leisure and about, if you say self-satisfaction without really considering the other factors I mentioned.
Some things are to give sometimes, I guess.
Yeah, but I think it's happening.
Yeah.
It's changing.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Abdullatif, thank you very much for this conversation. It was my pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you very much.